This whole time we've talked about how the company is evaluating you. You are also evaluating the company. Do you want to work for them? Watch for these kinds of red flags. What you're looking for is, are they going to offer you training, or are they just going to throw you in the deep pool and, hey, hope you don't drown? Are they going to be expecting lots of extra work without extra pay? Are they the kind of company that promotes their friends and everybody else is just someone that they can take advantage of, like a slip? My brother actually had this one, will you accept the job right now? And he was like, we're not even done with the interview process. And they're like, would you accept it right now? Yes or no? And he was like, I think I would want to go talk to my wife. And they said, no, what would it take for you to say yes right now? And he's like, oh, I don't like this. So these are all red flags. Posting question, what's another red flag that if somebody said this in the interview process, you might question whether this is the right job for you? Let's talk about when you have the offer. Usually they'll give you about a week, maybe 3 weeks to respond. That's stressful if you've applied a couple of different places. And there's sort of a desire to string them along to wait to see whether the other offer is better. Companies know this, they totally do. And so if you're stringing them along too much, that's a sign you don't really want their job, so they're going to go try somebody else. So the best way to handle this situation is to evaluate, okay, is this a job that you can be happy with, and how much time is reasonable to wait, understanding their needs and understanding your needs. How to compromise with a client is actually one of the things we'll talk about as part of the consulting course. Could you just say yes, and then if you get a later offer, say no later? Okay, listen, that's not like illegal. It's definitely evil. You are part of the dark side if you think that's okay. Every company has stories of someone who's done that, and you're definitely blacklisted. They have no interest in working with you, and if anybody asks them, they're going to say no, they can't work with you. You're definitely burning bridges. So, can you? Maybe. I would strongly suggest that you don't be that kind of person. It changes the kind of person that you are. But what do you do if you have an offer and it's not as good as you were hoping? You're worried you might not get a better one. Well, now we're going to talk about the negotiating tactics. The best way to negotiate is over here. To do the math and figure out, here's what I really need in order to accept this job offer. If you can do that, it's very cut and dried. Not every company can negotiate, and usually they'll tell you. Often, the person telling you the offer is actually on your side. They really would love to see you work there. They're going to some boss above them with, here's what the candidate says, and that person is the one making the decision. So be kind to the person you're talking to on the phone. You want to be really careful not to say, if you can't raise your offer, I'm going to reject it. Because it might be that they can't raise their offer and you're still going to say, this is the best plan I have. So the kind of wording that you need to use is to say, I really love the company, I'm interested in it, I have some concerns about the salary, we're going to be making a decision. Now, this wording here is clever. What is the best offer you can make? This is when you don't really know the math of what you need. You just would like it to be a little higher, and then you give them an opportunity to come back. Most companies will say, this is the best offer that we can make, and that's good to know. But if there's some wiggle room, that person you're talking to on the telephone is probably on your side, and they're going to say, hey, look, if you insist, we can probably add an extra $2,000 per year or whatever else. But if you say, here's how much I need, and they do meet that, you can't then say, oh, now I want to ask for an extra 2,000. So there's why doing the math is helpful. When you're done, what's going to happen next? Your life is going to dramatically change, but it's going to feel like nothing changed, especially like if you're in the master's program, you still have these classes. What's funny is every semester I say, once you get that job offer, you're not going to want to keep doing classwork, but you need to. And every semester I have a student who's like, yeah, I just got a job offer, and you're right, I really don't care about the final project in this class anymore. Yeah, okay, I get it. You do still have to do the final project. Finish strong. You don't want to be the kind of person that leaves stuff undone. And especially if you don't pass some little class and then that stops you from being able to graduate, which could have job offer implication. Yeah, don't do that. Be strong. There's a lot of extra stuff like housing or moving or trainings that you're going to have to do and move forward with. And, come back to me and tell me any advice or things that you wish you had known, because I would love to be able to update this and say, hey, a student told me last semester this or that was helpful. Okay, our last posting question is going to be an update talking about the idea of finding data. So, do you have your own data set that you think you want to work with? Or are you going to be looking for a data set? And we'll talk about places where you can find it, or you can find or request one of the ones that I have. Let's real quick run through some of these rules here. Probably not going to surprise you. This has to be a data set you haven't analyzed before, not something from a homework question, not something from some research project where you published something or you've seen it in a past class, or maybe somebody else already went through it and you're like, okay, good, I'll just use this because I have the whole analysis. No, you are going to need to be able to look at this for the first time for this class. Now, it needs to be something simple, more than just X, Y. So a couple variables, something with, 3 or 4 X's to predict a Y. Your client is not going to be a PhD level researcher. Some of you may have data as part of some bigger research project, and there's some piece of that data that you haven't analyzed in this way before. That's fine. When you write your report, you're not going to be writing it for a peer-reviewed statistical journal. You're going to be writing it for a client who wants help understanding it. So that's going to be a different level than a research journal publication. For the analysis, there aren't rules on which type of analysis. Does it need to be ANOVA? Does it need to be classification? Does it need to be logistic? Okay, it depends, right? We don't have rules there, but you do need to pick a type of analysis that is appropriate and that you can defend, like, here's why I use this and here's why I think it's a good one. And the research question, this is something people mess up consistently. The research question is not which statistical method is best. That might be a question that you will answer as you're analyzing their data. The question is going to be about, help me to understand how do we save the bees? Or help me to understand how can I make the most money? Or help me to understand why patients are dying. Those are the kind of questions clients are going to be interested in. In a class of 30, there's probably about 10 of you that are going to say, oh yeah, actually I've got this cool data set that I want to work with, or somebody I know has some data I'm interested in. And the other 20 of you are like, no, I really have no clue. That's cool. That's fine. You can answer this discussion post question by just saying, I do not have my own data. I'm going to be looking for something. And then we will talk in a future lesson about different places where you can go and look and find something.